Hello, I'm Chuck Costas with Prop Store, and today, courtesy of Spider Web Art Gallery, I have the pleasure of speaking with Greg Hildebrandt, who has a few pieces that are represented in our Los Angeles Entertainment Memorabilia live auction that's coming up. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you for being here, and thank me for being here.
Thank you for being here. Greg, first I wanted you to know that, you're probably the first artist who I knew by name. And the reason for that is I had this poster that I got in Cheerios box when I was younger.
Yeah. Oh,
and you'll notice that, in the middle of the poster is this big name, Hildebrandt. And so I always wondered who Hildebrandt was. And obviously it was you and your brother, Tim, who were the brothers Hildebrandt. And
yes,
I'm sure others that are out there that had either this poster or a t-shirt of the same image and noticed that as well. So a pleasure to talk to you.
Sure thing.
So you and your brother, Tim, were incredibly prolific artists. And what pieces or franchises do you get the most recognition for?
Well, obviously the Star Wars poster, that first one, which we derived from Tom Young's original poster, at the directive of the ad agency handling the account in New York City, and the Lord of the Rings, which we did several years before the poster. We illustrated 3 calendars for Ballantine Books based on J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. So those two are the biggest. And then Marvel Comics. We did a lot of stuff for Marvel, and I'm still doing stuff for Marvel. Trading cards, covers, one graphic novel. So I would say that's kind of like the sequence of recognizability.
Multiple generations worth of artwork. And as the brothers Hildebrandt, how did you and Tim share responsibilities of working on pieces?
Well, we were twins, so we were together in the womb. And when we came out, when we worked together, it was like a single unit. It was like one person working. And in other words, we were like Huey, Dewey, and Louie. We would finish each other's sentences, which cracked everybody up. Tim would start a sentence, I'd finish it, or vice versa, because we were on the same wavelength. And so when it came to actually working, say, professionally on the rings of the Star Wars poster, we would, one of us would do an initial comp sketch, or both would, and then we'd compare them, say, for the Lord of the Rings, and we would choose one, that one, this is a good one. So we would develop that together, literally draw it together, handing it back and forth, and develop maybe half a dozen pictures at one time like that. And then when it came to the painting, we would divide it up also. We had our palette was in between us. Tim sat on one side, I sat on the other, and we painted together. We would be crisscrossing arms over each other and mixing here in the paint, blah, 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 blah. So we, in conceptual, it was together, it was like one unit, and then the final execution. So, and there was never any conflict.
Well, let's talk about some of the pieces that we've got coming up in the auction. Let's talk about first Star Wars. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about the creation of that famous Star Wars movie poster that you adapted from the design by Tom Young. How did you get the job, and what was the process to create it?
Well, I mean, if you want the whole story.
Well, maybe the short version.
Well, I mean, I always thank Mel Brooks, even though he doesn't know it, because Tim and I, we were tired of doing all kinds of like tchotchke illustration, down to a toilet training book. And we said, let's go after something bigger, better, more glamorous movie posters. Opened up the yellow pages, closed our eyes and pointed to there, blah, 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 studio. Called them. They said, yeah, come on over. Back in the day, you could call any studio back in the 70s. And they would say, bring your portfolio. Brought our portfolio, walked into the studio. There was a bunch of paintings there. I said, what the hell is this? Young Frankenstein. Well, Mel Brooks is producing young, blah, 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 black and white. I said, oh my God, we got to do a poster. They said, well, it's all done. There's no more budget, and they're being shipped out tomorrow morning. Tim and I said, we don't care. Give us one. We'll go home. We'll do it for nothing. We went home with it, with the photos and stuff, came up with a concept, painted it overnight, brought it back in. Now, they didn't use it, but they remembered us 3 years later when Star Wars came along. And I believe George Lucas requested it to their main agency in Hollywood, and got a hold of us, and they remembered that we could produce something overnight. The film was coming out in a week, and they needed a painting. And so we came in, and they had Tom Young's, and I said, well, you got your poem, what is it? And they said, well, the director wants it more comic booky. Whatever that meant, that's all they explained to us. So on the way home with all the information, Tim and I said, well, comic booky, what the hell does that mean? Well, we thought maybe, it means more punch, more color contrast and value contrast, the warm light in the foreground, the cool light and the blue light in the background. And maybe the girl should be a little more, shapely, more Frazetta-ish, Frank Frazetta-ish. That's what we thought. That was our Tim and I analysis. We had no information other than what they told us. So we went home and did that in 36 hours, the painting.
Wow, that's amazing.
Worked around the clock, and brought it in.
And it's become a classic.
Yeah. So, I mean, it happens like that sometimes, it just, it's a fluke almost, If we hadn't done the Mel Brooks thing, I don't think we would have gotten this job, So it's kind of interesting the way stuff happens.
Well, you later returned to work on Star Wars Shadows of the Empire card set with your brother, Tim.
Right.
And then recently you did the Star Wars, the Marvel Years omnibus covers. How has painting the Star Wars universe changed since you first painted that first poster?
It's changed immensely. I mean, what with further sophistication of the computer and computer effects, which John Dykstra and his crew started, with Lucas, I mean, obviously. But, we had more time, a little more time this time. So we could spend a little more time on the stuff. So that became the difference. But as far as
were there any characters you like drawing that you got to?
It was all fun. I love everything that comes in front of me. I have no particular favorite, really. It's like I just enjoy the whole thing.
So let's talk about Lord of the Rings. The images that the public has of the characters of Lord of the Rings today can be traced back to the images you and Tim created for those 1970s Ballantine Books Lord of the Rings calendars. What did you take inspiration from in creating that world?
Well, again, like I say, Tim and I were interested in all kinds of stuff, back to the old comics and classic illustration, like say Arthur Rackham and the great fantasy of Edmund Dulac and Howard Pyle and N.C. Wyeth. And so that, and Hal Foster's Prince Valiant, all that stuff. And we love even though they may have been not all that, fantastic compared now, but the old medieval movies with, the Black Shield of Fell with Tony Curtis and we loved all that stuff in Ivanhoe and everything. I think all that merged, all that period stuff and fantasy stuff merged for us. And so when we read The Rings, we just flipped over it. We said, we got to illustrate this someday, which we did, and finally contacted Ballantine Books. And it's the interesting thing about that is when they had one of the calendars, I forgot, maybe it was a Tolkien calendar himself. He did a lot of his own renderings of his background stuff. And there was a pitch on the back, or an appeal on the back. They were seeking illustrators who were interested in interpreting The Lord of the Rings. Tim and I were the only professionals that showed up at Ballantine Books. Every other piece of artwork.
And Greg, I see something in the back. So in our auction, we have a very historic piece, the very first sketch of the Hobbits that you ever drew.
Right here, yes.
How did this set the tone, and how did you evolve the Hobbits from just this image?
Well, I mean, I read the text, obviously, and I saw the halflings. You figure the half is tall, they're 3 feet tall, roughly. And you figure, well, they're just not shrunk down people. How do I do this to make them a little more, and so you shrink their physical proportions, but you keep the head larger, almost human size, and the hands a little bigger, and then the longer feet. Given Hobbit sounds like rabbit to me. Maybe Tolkien wasn't even thinking that. I don't know. Well, they in a hole in the ground lived a hobbit, so that's an underground creature. So and the hairy feet were established by Tolkien, but he never talked about the length of the feet. So we extended the feet, and that was our basic look on that first sketch. I would say Sam and Frodo pretty much stayed the same. Merry and Pippin shifted, and we ended up not using hat on Merry. But other than that, for the most part, that initial sketch was kind of like what we stuck to. Looks another way.
Well, Clash of the Titans, which you also have behind you, it's another iconic image. We're also offering that final pencil sketch. What were the biggest challenges on this project? Well,
Bill Gold Agency. What Bill Gold goes back, his first poster, I think, was Yankee Doodle Dandy, the George M. Cohan with Jimmy Cagney, and then Casablanca. So he called, his agency called, and they said they requested that Tim and I do the poster. I guess Mr. Harryhausen and Schneer, his producer. And so we went in and to Mr. Gold's office, and which was his whole setup was like a movie mogul. You had to walk upstairs to his desk sitting there. He was fantastic. And we talked about the film gave us a bunch of reference. We went home, we did 50, 60 different layouts. I would do tons of different variations. Brought them in, and he said, no. They want you to copy your Star Wars poster. Put the big head in the sky, put the two figures over here, put the Pegasus over here. They basically directed it. And I get, hit Mr. Harryhausen. And I said to Bill, well, we're going to be blamed on copying the Star Wars poster. Well, that's what they want. What can I tell you? So that's how that's it. And I'm a huge Harryhausen fan. I mean, come on. I was nuts on, Clash of the Clash of the Titans. I thought was his last movie was terrific. But I mean, I went back to Jason and the Argonauts and the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, because I'm a special effects kook. I did my own stop motion as a kid and professionally then in industrial film in Detroit. So it was an honor for me to be doing this poster. It was a fantastic experience, even though it was more or less copied from the setup, of Star Wars. Whatever.
Some similarities, but I think it turned out great.
Yeah. Thanks.
Now to move on to one of my favorite, or at least memorable movies of the 1980s, which was Krull. And as part of that, you created one of the greatest props of all time that Colwyn wields, which is the glaive. What was it like to design one of the coolest props from a 1980s movie?
That was an experience and a half. It was like working with Peter Yates. Started with Ron Silverman Productions called us, and they said it was down to Frank Frazetta and Tim and me, and they decided on Tim and me because we had film experience, basically. So we were the production design. We were hired to do production design the entire film, and which we started working on. And then Tim and I split, and I did it all myself. I produced 100, 200 illustrations of character designs, costume designs, props, environments, backgrounds, color, everything. Ultimately, the only thing that made it into the film was the glaive. And because Mr. Yates decided he wanted to work with Stephen Grimes, great art director who was with John Huston on one of my favorite movies of all time, Moby Dick and Moulin Rouge, the old one with Jose Ferrer. And so he went with him. And Tim and I, I finished off and I got paid, but that was what they used. And that's people tell me over the years that was their favorite thing in the film.
Line, I can tell you that.
So I must have done, again, I do my 20 different takes on it, so I did tons of different variations of that. And, the one that ended up in the film is the one that ended up in the film. So it was cool. It was a hell of an experience.
Well, moving on to Marvel, in the auction, we also have a large 20 by 30 variant cover painting you did for Old Man Logan, #5,
Yes.
the comic book series that served as inspiration for the 2017 film Logan. Compared to other times you painted the character, what was different about the elements you used to portray Logan in this version?
Well, when Hugh Jackman first appeared in 2000 in that first film, that was it. I was nuts about it, nuts about his performance and him as an actor. So I'm a big Jackman fan, and that's in your mind as you're doing it. As I'm doing it, even though overtly Marvel Comics they would not say don't copy the movies. There were two separate entities, but yet it would still filter in. So for me, the fact of Hugh Jackman's performance is the thing that influenced me in this respect, And then but with this particular image, I work from photos, models that I get, and I pose, make the costumes. In this case, I pose for Old Man Logan. So Old Man Hildebrandt gets to pose for Old Man Logan. Gene shot pictures of me, but still, Jackman's still in my mind. And that film was fantastic. The Logan film was incredible. One of the best comic films ever.
I would agree.
My feeling,
Well, we have many fans of Marvel's Daredevil that have participated in our past Marvel Television Live auctions. And in this auction, we have a large 20 by 30 blackboard that you did of Daredevil in his black season 3 costume. What did you love about Marvel's Daredevil, and what inspired you to paint this piece?
That series was, I think, the best ever on television as far as comics is concerned. And one of the best series on television. To me, it just knocked me on my butt. So everybody's performance in there was incredible. They were all fantastic. D'Onofrio's Fisk scared the crap out of me. Just the close-ups of him, the rage that you could feel coming from him with no words. So, and this character and his design of that final costume to me looked like it was non-costumey. it looked like very real and believable. You know, and don't take me wrong, I love the costume aspects of these superhero characters, but this was just something. The appeal of the gritty reality of it is what grabbed me. And like I say again, I repeat, that series was incredible to me. It was fantastic.
Well, Greg, those are some great insights today. I want to thank you for taking some time with us to talk about your pieces in Prop Store's 2021 Los Angeles Entertainment Memorabilia Live Auction. Bidding is currently open on these and over 1,300 other original memorabilia lots. Before the auction takes place, it'll take place on June 29th, 30th, and July 1st. So register now and start bidding online or on the day of the auction via phone and absentee bidder. Check back for more live auction coverage soon.